our first speaker for the evening. We have a person who is an archaeologist by training, but kind of a bird nerd by passion. And Arjan is going to tell us all about why birds are awesome and his plans for this kind of epic global birding adventure. So please welcome to the stage.
Hello. Very nice that you guys are here. Yeah, I'm gonna talk about my very nerdy hobby bird watching and my biggest year, as I call it, which will be in 1.5 months, like an epic birding adventure in 2016. Really excited about that. Well, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Arjan Dwarshuis. I'm an archaeologist on paper, but a bird watcher by heart. And I'm on a mission to break the world record in bird watching, which is in Holland. It's kind of rather small, but it's huge worldwide. Well, it's a quest to see 6,000 bird species in a single year. And this is how you would visualize that. So like about 90% of the birds on this little drawing I will actually try to see next year. Well, the context of my lecture will be why birds? How did I start with that? A couple of avian wonders, threats and conservation, my biggest year, the requirements for such a biggest year, and some concluding remarks. Well, the spark that lit the fire. I was very lucky, unlike you, to be struck with the birdwatching virus at a very young age. And I had binoculars that was bigger than my own head, and like a nice blonde bloempot capsule. And my parents dragged me all over the world. So it started maybe in Africa, the first spark. And
the Albatrosses are the world's largest seabird.
Well, these are albatrosses, like a bird. I grew up by the sea in The Hague. I'm an only child. Albatross grows up by its own. Friends call me Big Bird. Albatross is a big bird. So, like, it's my favorite bird. And then my favorite person in the world, David Attenborough, talks about it. So, yeah, talks about flight. Birds also fascinate. This is a robin, your ordinary robin in your back garden, but this one is on the northern tip of Texel. And there I was leading an excursion. There were a couple of kids. Actually, the robin was like this far away from them, and it literally stayed for half an hour. And it was a very common bird, but it fascinates. It's it's just this tiny bird, and it's so amazing. Birds, wow! Like this is the blue bird of paradise. Actually saw this one in Papua New Guinea a couple of years back. Next year I will also try to see this one. It's known as the most beautiful bird in the world. And this family, the birds of paradise, are actually related to your ordinary crow in your back garden. And they evolved, and they call that survival of the sexiest, actually. Like the better you look, the more chance of reproducing you have. Another member of the birds of paradise that dazzles, the king of Saxony bird of paradise. King of Saxony bird of paradise. You know why. This bird is actually he's so involved with being sexy that he almost lost his ability to see and to hear, because these feathers are actually of a nail-like structure, and they compose most of the room in his head. So you actually see the bluish gloss in the eyes. It's actually almost blind. It's really, really special. And then birds are amazing. These are 2 gold crests in my own hand. It's in a ringing, it's in a conservation project. And these birds are actually 5 grams when they are fatting up in the Scandinavian taiga forest. And then it becomes cold, and they need to fly to northwestern Europe, to the Netherlands, to winter. So these birds weigh 5 grams. It's literally, it's almost nothing. And they cross the North Sea completely out of their elements to reach the pine forests in northwestern Europe. And when they arrive here, they lost 1/3 of their body weight. It's amazing. Birds intrigue. Like till the 1600s, people thought that swallows in winter, they dig themselves in the mud. And then in spring, they dig themselves out of the mud again. Until about 300 years back, they had a stork in the Netherlands. It arrived in spring with a spear through its neck, actually. And it was hunted upon in Africa. So they used typology to discover actually what migration was, that those birds went to the southern hemisphere in winter. And birds navigate. Really, really, really interesting stuff. They use, of course, their parents. They show them the way. They use landmarks like the Colorado River. They navigate by the stars. And they use genetic imprinting. So when they crawl out of that eggshell, they already know it's in their nature to fly towards the south in autumn. And we still don't know how that actually works. But birds are fascinating, you know that now. But unfortunately, they're also very threatened. Like, that is the yellow-breasted bunting. They're on the left. It winters in large flocks in Asia, and it breeds very commonly until 10 years back in Siberia. And it's literally been eaten away. Like, there are only a couple of thousand left, and it's close to extinction. And we did that in a couple of decades. And I think little can be done to save this species, which used to be very common. Then we have long line trawling, which caused almost extinction of maybe every albatross species there is. You have hunting in the Mediterranean. 30 million birds every year are hunted just for pleasure and for food. Our birds, and it's a big tragedy. And also their habitat gets destructed. This is the Atlantic rainforest in Brazil, and this is what's left of it, with maybe 400 birds endemic to that Atlantic rainforest. Also, you have lakes drying out, and at the moment, the peat swamp forest in Indonesia is literally on fire. Not just birds, but orangutans are burning alive. It's a real tragedy, with the biggest ecological tragedy at the moment. And then, of course, the oceans are being emptied. You have these wonderful birds, like the Araripa manakin, the spoon-billed sandpiper, the Bengal floric, and the Lear's macaw that are actually vanishing. Well, there's some organization doing something about it called the Bird Life Preventing Extinctions Program. Works with a system with species champions, which try to save the birds at a local level, and species guardians. Sorry, it's reversed. Species champion, they try to raise money for the species guardians to save those birds locally. And this is how that actually works. So what you see, BirdLife tries through these birds, try to save those natural last remaining natural havens from extinction. And that is why next year I will do a fundraiser, an awareness campaign, 1 year long, and it's called My Biggest Year. I will try to break the world record in bird watching, try to see 60% of all the bird species in the world in 1 year, and it's an epic journey through 35 different countries. So this is my route, basically, and I will start on the 1st of January with a big day in the Netherlands to see as many bird species as possible in 1 day in the Netherlands. Now, what does a big year require? It's not just a holiday where you lay on the beach for a couple of months and then you come home and then you high-five with your friends after seeing some birds. It's actually, all my flights are at night to save daylight time. I got a couple of heavy sleeping pills to knock me down on those flights. Well, another issue is I have to get Malarone for about 200 days of the 365 days. First, lots of desk research. I have to study all those bird books, remember those birds by heart. And well, it's also, I've been working on it for the last decade. So I know all these books by heart now. Well, I try to. Then I try to get the media involved as much as possible. And luckily now one of the most popular dudes in the Netherlands, Umberto Tan, is also becoming a bird watcher. So I'm texting with him regularly, and in December I'm gonna be on his show for the second time to talk about my biggest year. So that's going well. And then you have to get yourself some sponsors, because it's like a 50,000 euro budget. So I don't have that. So donate, you motherfuckers. I got a couple of great sponsors, Swarovski, Canon. And well, I'm still looking for some sponsors because I'm still a couple of thousand euros short. And then finally you can buy your plane tickets with Siska. She's booking all my flights. And first she said, oh yeah, sure, I'll book all your flights. Well, she booked 60 flights already, and she's not even started with Central America yet. So, but then after all that planning, you can see one of the most special birds in the world. Like, my most wanted one in the world is the Philippine Eagle, the one on the top. There are only 150 left in the world. It hunts for monkeys, actually. And the talons, like the risks of that bird, are as thick as an adult male human. So, and the nails are as long as that of a grizzly bear. So it's really, really huge. Then you have amazing birds like the Temming's Tragopan in the Himalayas, and this awesome beast called a shoebill, lives in the papyrus swamps of Central Africa. The Guyanan cock of the rock, much better looking than your own cock. And you can follow me during this epic adventure on my website, arjandwarshuis.com, on the website dutchbirding.nl. I write articles, one every month in Roots magazine. And then, of course, via Instagram and Twitter, #thebiggestyear. And my blog on swarovskioptic.com. Thank you so much for listening, and don't forget to make a donation, okay?
Wonderful.
Are there any questions?
Yes, so do you have any questions for Arjan? Go ahead.
So what will be the most challenging place you need to go to watch a specific bird?
Well, that's pretty easy. It's Papua New Guinea. I've been there before, but it was an organized trip. And Papua New Guinea is even getting in touch with the guides, because you need guides there, and you need an army escort in some place because it's rather dangerous. You have 800 different tribes in New Guinea, all battling each other. And so for instance, I text the guide, and then 2 weeks later he texts back, and then it's in broken English, and then basically you think, oh, Papua New Guinea, rainforest, the sunny weather. No, it's literally raining 80% of the time, and roads are bad, and but it's like the birds that you will see there, like the birds of paradise, which are incredibly difficult to see. They are like, if you want to make an omelet, you gotta break some eggs. I saw, yeah.
Yep.
You said something before about birds navigating in order to get to Africa, and I once heard something about them using the Earth's magnetic field.
That is one thing I forgot. Birds use the magnetic field of the Earth, like sharks. They can sense that as well. And there's an amazing story about that. In late September, October, we have a bird that suddenly shows up in the Netherlands every year, called a yellow-browed warbler. It's only 10 grams, and it breeds in Siberia, and it normally winters in Southeast Asia. But we got in that short window of time, we got them coming through in small numbers in the Netherlands. And then in spring, we never see them. Until recently, we didn't know how that came. But these birds actually navigate by the magnetic north. And they orientate to fly southeast. And they actually, with a small part of that population, navigate southwest. So if you see that, it's about 2,500 kilometers that birds needs to fly, and then he ends up in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. So that's why we don't see them in spring. Yeah. And then how do they know that these birds navigate by the magnetic field? They captured one of these birds, and they put it on a like a black round piece of paper, and then they made it pitch black, and they changed the magnetic field, and then he had his paws in white ink, and then overnight you see like the paws of these footprints like moving in just that one direction to south, in southern direction. It's really fascinating. So that's how we know that, actually.
Yeah. Is bird watching a sport that's affected by weather like so many other ones? And is your trip planned to accommodate for certain seasons around the globe like that?
Yes, it is very much affected by weather. So I'm actually visiting northeastern Australia, for instance, in the middle of the monsoon season. So it will be a challenge, and I have to be lucky. But, you know, there will be days that the weather is not working with me, and there will be days that I will be sick or peeing out of my, But I like it, it's part of the deal, so, yeah.
Yep, a few more. Lisa will run to you with a microphone.
Oh. Sorry.
Sorry. Oh. So you told us that you would like to see about 60% of the birds in 1 year, right?
Yes.
So that seems to be quite a tight planning. How many birds do you need to see per day to reach this goal?
In between 16 and 17 every day. Well, I have 366 days next year, so I have 1 day extra.
Nice.
Yeah.
So do you have to take a photograph of these birds in order for it to count, or can you just say, "Oh, I saw it"?
No, I have somebody with me all the time. I have friends, bird watching friends traveling with me, but also I'm the whole 366 days. I have guides, specialized bird guides, traveling with me, and I try to photograph and document as much as possible. And also, I'm gonna everything I see, I'm gonna put it in a live database. So it's gonna be the biggest database of sightings ever made by one person in 1 year. But I don't have to photograph them or sound record them. So it's kind of a strange record, because it's probably the only record that's not fully documented. And right now there's an American birder. He's at it, Noah Stricker. He's now already seen 5,200 species, and it's within the birding scene. It's huge. It's
So
like Roger Federer against Nadal, but less handsome, of course. Yeah.
And we've got one last question over here.
This is a follow-up to the question just asked. What's the most number of birds you ever have seen in 1 day? And what's the longest you've gone without seeing a new bird on one of your expeditions?
All right. The most I've ever seen in 1 day was actually this year. We broke the Southwest Holland record. Big daying, 24 hours. We saw 161 species, and it would have been 162, but the purple heron we saw turned out to be 200 meters in the province of Utrecht, so we couldn't count it. And then the longest I have ever been without seeing the bird I was going for was in Alpahuayo Mishana forest in Iquitos in Peru. And there was during my really hardcore travels when I was 18 or 19, I actually drank water from the Amazon. And I camped on a riverbank there, and it was, in Lonely Planet, described it as a no-go zone, like the most mosquito-infected horror place in the Amazon. And was in search of the Iquitos gnatcatcher, one little bird. And when I walked through these trails, like every 5 minutes, I had to squat, you know what I mean. And then I had a swarm of mosquitoes catching up with me. And then to make things worse, I grabbed the branch which had an army ant or a solitary black ant on it. I had a hand like a glove later, and it was horrible. But finally, after like one excruciating week, I finally saw the bird. Or maybe I was hallucinating after that. Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of us will be happy to follow along from the comfort of our own home.
All right.
But very good luck on your adventure.
Yes, and thanks for having me.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, for all of our Nerd Night speakers, we like to give you a comic that's in the theme of your talk. So the comic we got for you, it's not entirely birdie, but it has a character that's called Drunky the Crow. So we thought maybe you'll enjoy
right.
it.
Well,
So
I
it
like
can
crows and I'm drunk, so cheers. Yeah,
Perfect.
thank you very much.
Thank you very much,
Yes.
Arjan.